All right, hello class, and welcome to our lecture today. This is lecture number 18. Today we are talking about procreation, specifically from an environmental protection perspective. Is having children morally wrong? First, some learning objectives. A couple for you. First, I'd like you to be able to explain what Thomas Young's argument is about why it is wrong to have children, why it is morally wrong from an environmental protection perspective to have children. Try saying that. Environmental protection perspective. Yeah, it's tough. And second, like we do with all of our classes, I want you to be aware of some of the objections raised to Young's argument, and then potentially ways that Young may or may not be able to argue or rebut them. So let's start today with the actual argument. What is Thomas Young saying in his paper? Well, Young begins by noting that mainstream environmentalists typically believe that there are two claims that are true. That first, needless waste and resource depletion is morally wrong. And by resource depletion, he's talking specifically about things that result because of overconsumption, or what he calls eco-gluttony. You know what I'm talking about. People who just needlessly consume more than they are more than is necessary. Perhaps consuming things just for the fun or just because they can. And the second claim that he says that mainstream environmentalists typically make is that having children is morally permissible and even praiseworthy. And taking these two claims, which he says that these environmentalists assume are both true, Young says that these two claims are incompatible. You can't do both. He concludes that the mainstream environmentalists should either oppose procreation on moral grounds or change their perspective on the ideas about needless waste and resource depletion. And so what he's saying is, hey guys, these are incompatible. You can't do both. And to explain, he establishes this argument. Now first, though, we need to explain that there is maybe a little bit of math involved in this. I'm not a math major. I haven't taken math in 20 years, but I still am able to understand this math. And so I think I can explain it in a way that you too can explain. I don't think it's that challenging, but what Young wants us to do is to take this integer. He's going to call it E1. And he says E, which maybe stands, we can say, for energy or environmental impact. He says E1 equals the quantity, the total quantity of the average American's environmental impact over a 50-year period. So you take an average American and you look at all of the things they do and you measure their environmental impact over a span of 50 years. And you just take that number, make it an average number, say E1 equals what a typical American would use in energy over 50 years. So this includes things like emissions and resource usage, the meat that they eat. So that is E1. So if you look at an average American couple, say a couple who are both 30 years old, who would have, say, another 50 years of life left, you could say that, okay, person one is E1, person number two is E1. You combine those together, you get the number E2. So E2 then represents what the average American's environmental impact of over 50 years for two people. If you look at E4 would be the same thing, but take 4 people over 50 years, the average amount of environmental impact. All right, so are you following that? If I said E7, you would know that, all right, that is the average American of 50 years of life, the amount of energy, the resources, the impact that they have of 7 people. All right, so if you understand that, let me go through the argument here that he makes. So he starts with the family. He said, here's the Gray family. The Gray family, there's a young couple. Both of them are 30 years old or thereabout. Both of the couple have approximately 50 years of life left. They have very average resource consumption. They have 2 children, resulting in an environmental impact of, he says, E5. How do you get E5? Well, you have the couple, E1, and the other member of the couple is another E1, so that's E2. And then you have 2 children. Remember, though, that an E1 equals 50 years of life. And let's say these children live for 75 years. So they are E1 plus an additional amount, right? E1.5. So you take the 75 or 80 years of life times 2 kids, so that's 160 years. Well, let's just round it down to 150. So 150 years, well, that is the same as E3. You take the average American for 50 years, plus 50 years, that's 2 of them, plus 50 years, that's 3 of them. So having 2 children is equivalent to each of them being E1.5. So husband, partner, and then 2 children of 3. Now suddenly we're at E5. Are you following along? So the Gray family, a family of 4, their average consumption would be equal to E5. Now, typically, we do not think that there's anything morally suspect about what the Grays do. Right? That's very normal. A couple bring 2 kids into the world. We might even commend them for consuming only an average amount of resources and for bringing 2 children into the world. Now, notice that the Grays could have made a lifestyle choice to remain at E2, right, by not having any children. Instead, though, they made a lifestyle choice that resulted in E5. They had 2 children. Now, with that in mind, consider another couple. And just choosing a different color, this couple is the Greens, the Green family. Now, the Greens are over-consumers. They're what we're going to call eco-gluttons. They frequently fly around the world. They go for long joyrides in their gas-guzzling Hummer, their SUVs. They never buy locally. They never do farm fresh. They never go down to the farmer's market. They never recycle. They take that aluminum foil and throw it in the garbage. They use a lot of disposable items. They take long showers. They often water their lawns. They eat a lot of meat, which remember is a major greenhouse gas contributor, so on and so on. And so in short, the Greens consume 2.5 times more than the average couple. So the Greens' environmental impact, we can say, is another E5. Both of them consume 2.5 times more than the average American. So the Green family will, over their lifetime, have environmental impact equivalent to an E5, which, remember, is the same as the Gray family. Now, the Green family, most environmentalists would be outraged by what the Greens are doing. They would say, they would even maybe morally condemn their actions. They are wasteful, they are destroying the planet, they are leading to global climate change. But most would not condemn the Grays, right? Remember, the Grays just had 2 kids. They're average consumers. When the Grays say, we're expecting children, the typical reaction is, oh, that's so great, we're so happy for you, can't wait to meet them, you're going to be great parents. However, both couples, the Greens and the Grays, have made life decisions that have identical environmental impacts, right? Both of them, because of their decisions, have an environmental impact that's equivalent, E5. And so the conclusion that we should draw is that we should condemn both couples as acting equally immorally. Again, from an environmental perspective, both of them have an environmental impact of E5, so we should be saying that both of them are acting immorally. We can sum this up in the following argument. So, premise number 1, what the Greens do, namely overconsume, the eco-gluttons, results in an E5. So what the Greens do is morally wrong. Premise number 2, but what the Grays do, namely creating 2 children, also resulting in an environmental impact of E5, is morally analogous to what the Greens do. Therefore, procreation is morally wrong. So if you think eco-gluttony is wrong, then when your friends say, we're having a baby, your reaction should be, boo, how terrible, you must hate the environment. All right? That seems to be correct. That's what Jung is leading us to believe. Or on the other hand, can one consistently condemn ecogluttony while also approving of procreation? That is the question for us to consider today.